Hi, everybody, and welcome. I'm Pamela Gibson, and I'm lead facilitator for Learning for a Sustainable Future. And today we're going to talk about November and December and how to get outside with our kids. Before we start, this traditional territory of the original peoples is steeped in rich Indigenous history and traditions. And as a community and individuals here today, we have the opportunity and responsibility to honor and respect the land, the rocks, the waters, the plants, the air, the animals, and the ancestors. So in the spirit of respect and truth, we honor and acknowledge those peoples who have been in this area for many thousands of years and who still live on this land. We are grateful to be here today learning together. Developing a love for the land and a reciprocity with Mother Earth is critical to a sustainable future. As educators, we can help our kids create those hearts and minds that are deep rooted in sustainability. So let's do our part and get our kids learning outside with place-based experiential curriculum-connected learning. It's about deep connection. There are lots of reasons to stay outside all year round. And mostly it's about that deep connection or developing a sense of place. And that means knowing your place all year round as the cycles go on. It's not just in the, in quotes, good weather from June to September. Because there's many learning opportunities outside and they're different in every different season. Being outside can help our kids build resilience, more grit, and a deeper appreciation and love for all the seasons. Being outside all year round teaches preparedness, responsibility, and also helps them with their critical thinking skills. It builds teamwork. As they say, together we can do this. Abstract concepts like adaptation come alive in winter, and other seasons have their particular concepts that are easy to teach. All weather begins to look like good weather in their mind's eye, and we don't create those 50-day per year kids who are only out from June to September. And as a northern people here in Canada, our mental health demands that we're out there all year round with that fresh air and attaching ourselves to our place. That's how we create sustainable kids, and that's how we create sustainable adults and a sustainable world. So what are the considerations for working outside and in the community in November and beyond? Well, there's always the same ones. What do you do about safety? How about weather, clothing? Are there any tips and tricks? What materials are useful? And what are the opportunities to attach to our curriculum that we can learn about outside in winter? Well, I know it's still fall, but we're thinking winter, right? So we're going to start with safety. And what are those habits and routines that help us with the concept of safety and to put them into practice? And I want to say right off, involving your parents and involving your kids in these discussions is the way to go, because if they have a say and if they are deciding together, they're more likely to do exactly what they say they should do. So decide together on boundaries. First of all, you're going to be out on your playground. So just decide where they can go, what they can't go, and why that is, what they think. What are those signals that you're going to use to communicate with each other? What's a meeting place? And try to maintain all of that, because sameness creates routine, and routine is likely to have a little bit more success. Together with your kids, forecast any dangers on a specific day or any risks. Decide together what's appropriate to do. What appropriate protocols or rules do we need to be safe? What do we need to take outside? Can we attach appropriate behaviors to the place we're in? And that's very important. And then we become adaptable when we change places. What's important and appropriate in our place? And make sure those parents and admin are aware of your trips when you do venture off your school property. While you're on school property, you're probably just fine to go in and out. We're going to talk about clothing in a big way later, so I'm not going to even mention the word, I don't think. If you're going into a place with trees, make sure that your students are aware of what wind and snow can do in terms of branches moving, and sometimes they're stressed and they break and fall. So just make sure that that you talk about that quite a bit. Ensure everyone has that clothing thing. Okay. Be prepared to reschedule or shorten your time if it's too cold, you suddenly get freezing rain, or the snow becomes too heavy, or the wind is too strong. And of course, take your cell phone out. Let's talk about the weather more. Talk about the weather because we're Canadian and we know we need to talk about the weather. Well, we need to talk about the weather every time we go outside, pretty much. And we need to teach our kids to pay attention to it and learn about it so they can be appropriate without us continually reminding them. Ask them to comment on it. What kind of a day is it out here? Or to respond to it. How did you feel in this strong wind? We all know there's seasonal norms for your area, but we all know there's above and below normal. So what kind of a day is this? Is this above normal in temperature? Is the wind stronger than usual? And of course, if you're in an area where you've recently had forest fires, or now we're talking volcanoes and we're talking climate change, then those need to be considerations too. Wind chill. It's even reported on the news and the weather now, because it affects how warm or cold you're going to be in spite of the temperature. What's the prevailing wind? Have kids face the wind with their faces each day so they know where the wind comes from on their playground. And when it doesn't, ask them what they think's going on. Find a windbreak spot each day if the wind changes direction, and make sure that that's where you go to circle up afterwards or at the beginning. Be aware with your kids that the sun will make you feel warmer even on a cold day, and that sunburn is possible in winter. As I said, have a meeting place out of the wind. Circle up. Make your circle as tight as is comfortable and reasonable without anybody bugging anybody. And talk at the beginning of what you're doing out there. Set the stage. And at the end, ask them how it went for them. Feelings count. Involve your kids in deciding the length of time. You can say, we know what we're doing out here. How long do you think it'll take us? That prediction is a really important skill. Adapt your activities to suit the weather. Don't ask them to write when it's really cold outside. In fact, I very seldom have kids writing outside. I tell them I want them to really be aware of what's going on and to see things. If you're dealing with numbers, sometimes you have to do that, but choose your days wisely. No writing or no mitless activities on really cold days. If your kids know that they're going to have time to write inside and to take notes and to talk together about what they need to record, before they come to a circle and have a discussion with the class, then they have that confidence that they don't need to write. So use your classroom as the office and go outside to do your field work. That creates a balance. And that balance is necessary for your kids, and it's necessary for you and I. Okay, we got to the close. So this is where parents come in. If you have had those conversations with parents from the beginning of the year, good on you. But if you haven't, start now, and you start to say things like, I want you to consider that your kids will be going in and out, and they may be staying outside more than you suspect they are. So perhaps you could consider that when you're looking in those recycle shops for the next hand-me-downs or whatever else is going on. Boots are very important. They don't need to be those little booties that don't keep anybody warm except on a bus. So if they're going to buy some boots, make your parents aware that the best boots to buy are ones that are big enough and that you can double up your socks in them. With regard to your head, we all know you need to keep your head warm. So You start off with lightweight hats. You move from warm hats to a hat with a hood. If they have hoods, that's wonderful because it's just that extra layer to keep them warm. And speaking of layers, lots of layers and room for layers under coats is really advisable. So if their coats are super tight, encourage your parents to say, no, buy one that's a little on the big side, or go find one that's on the big side so the kids can put layers underneath them. With regard to their hands, those little glovies are good in November usually, but then you're going to move to warmer gloves, and then from warmer gloves to mittens, and then to gloves with mitts on top. Base layers, warm clothes underneath. If they've got the clothes they usually have in the classroom, that's great. That could be a base layer, but then they're going to put something on top. The best time to ask your kids if they chose the right clothes is when you've been out there quite a while on a cold day. And you circle them up and you say, did you choose the right clothes today, or do you close your eyes? Are you seeing something in your closet you wished you'd brought today because you would have been more comfortable? And give them the opportunity to say, yeah, I needed to do that. And educate your parents. And you can do that sometimes, and I know parents aren't always available to come to school, but if some of them can, invite them when you're going outside so that they can experience that with your kids. And the first time they'll come with their coffee cup in their hand and their little booties and their hardly ever mitts, and they'll be freezing. And the next time they won't do that. It's just sort of like your kids. So it really helps if you can get that message across that way. So here's a few materials and tricks and tips, as I say, that my colleagues and I have found useful. Sit-upons, those little square things for their tushies, they need to be small and waterproof. If you're going to have kids sitting outside on the ground, they cannot sit on the ground in the winter. It's just going to end up with wet bums, and that's not great. So small, waterproof, whatevers. And there's how to make one out of a reusable plastic bag if you want to have a look. You can cut up camping mats. You can do all kinds of things, but make sure it's waterproof and they don't soak up water. Those lovely yoga mats, you have to be careful because sometimes they soak up water. Golf pencils, love them. You can get 1,000 for very cheap, and it's no great disaster if they lose them in the snow. If you want them to write, they can stick them in their pockets. They're just a great thing to do. Clipboards you might need for some of those experiences, especially with the older kids. That really works. Magnifying glasses, love them. You'll see some pictures as we go along of kids using magnifying glasses. It helps kids to go from the micro to the macro in their mind's eye and to see things in a different way. And older kids might have phones or something else or iPads to take out or whatever, but some kids love to take photographs, and that's a really good thing. And other kids just love looking through a magnifying glass. So know your kids and maybe have a little of both available. So best practices, as I've said before, talk to your students. And when you're outside, if they're lined up, you can talk to them from the middle of the line with their backs to the sun, so they don't have their eyes in the sun. But I love a circle, and get them as tight as they're comfortable, and teach them to speak with big voices that go over the wind. And you can start off with a circle, make sure everybody's clear on what they're going to do, and when they come back, ask them how it went. I love that question. How did it go for you today? And listen to them, because they all have their stories. Flexibility. Be prepared for things not to go in a straight line. In other words, if they go out there looking for a certain kind of rocks and they end up looking at leaves, I'd go with it, because you can go back to the rocks anytime and you know what you're going to do. But if that certain thing, or if a squirrel pops up and is doing weird things, go with it, because it creates that interest and that desire to be outside, if nothing else. And also, if we're all smart as educators, we can find ways of relating that squirrel to some of our curriculum. Structuring the day. Do not require kids to dress, undress, dress, undress all day. It just eats up your time It frays your nerves. It makes them sad. I would attach on to times when they're already dressed. So when the bell rings at the beginning of the day, maybe you're not going in. Maybe you're going to do something. Or just before recess starts for 15 minutes, you're going to go out ahead of time. They're already dressed. They're already ready. Or after. So think about those kinds of ways in which you can tag on. Maybe it's at the end of the day. Before the bell rings, you're going to get out there for half an hour. So think about that. And circles. If you know about a knowledge building circle, great. If you don't, see if you can find out, because it's a way of kids talking with each other where they build knowledge together. That's the civil discourse that we want our kids to know. But I love questions like, what surprised you the most out there? Or what didn't go so well? Or if you had it to do all over again, how would you do it differently? Those are great critical thinking questions. Teamwork. How do you teach teamwork? Cooperative games are awesome. They're everywhere. Explore that possibility. Find out, get online, find some good ones. It helps your kids to work together and to be a good learning team. Far less social difficulties if you can do that and work on those social skills through cooperative games. As I said at the beginning, that building more resilience, more grit, more love and appreciation of the out of doors, even walks in deep snow through the woods where they help each other. And maybe they can, link arms or pull each other through the snow, or make a game out of it. It just teaches them that they can do things they didn't think they could do, especially when the snow is really deep compared with the height of the student. I mean, it doesn't take much for the kindergartens to be out of their league, but it does take more for the grade 8. So on those deep snowfall days, get out there and see if you can riff around a little bit and just understand that you can do things you didn't think you could do. And strictly enjoying the beauty of it all. There's some photos that the kids snapped on the right, and you can see them going through the burn that the snowplow made just because, right? And there's that magnifying glass looking at the frost on the log. Understanding those abstract concepts, I think I've covered that. There's lots of ways of looking at the critters and to use the critters around us and look for evidence. You're not likely to see a fox run across your playground, but you may see tracks, and tracks are wonderful. And all of those evidences or feathers or anything that you see, making up stories of where that fox went or what the day of the fox, what was he doing, And that's just a fantastic way of getting involved with other critters that are around us. Oh yeah, sublimation. Can't say that in that word enough. How do you teach sublimation if you don't get out there in the winter? So mental health, everything circles around to mental health. Well, we can enjoy the quiet of the snow. And I know in the city, it's not all that quiet anyway, but when there's a snowfall, it really helps, right? It silences the tires and everything, and it's wonderful. It's a different experience. Ooh, acoustical sound, very cool. There's those sit spots like our friends on the right-hand side, 2 pictures, where they have time alone just to connect and just sit there and chill. Never underestimate that. And that's a learned skill. Do it for 1 minute and then build them up to 5 or so. Do some yoga outside or some other movement. It's different in the snow than it is in the grass or in the gymnasium. And we like to say try plogging, which is a Swedish idea that you're jogging around picking up garbage. So it's part workout and part social responsibility. Woo! So there's lots of different examples here and what you can do, the opportunities. I'm just going to flip through these because I know your time is valuable. But if you want to zone in on these later, absolutely do so, because we've given you tons of ideas here. I hope. This is Janice Haynes and I who created this. And we hope that you see, oh, that's something I could do. Because that's what it's all about. You, your subjects, your curriculum in your school with your kids. What is it that you can find? And in the end, remember, it's all about connecting to your curriculum. And how can you do that? Well, The first thing is you got to know your curriculum well so that you see it when you know it when you see it. When you're outside, you're looking through a curriculum lens and you're always saying to yourself, how could I link this to my curriculum? Taking walks outside and just being outside in your own neighborhood, that is when you start to see possibilities out there and possibilities in your kids' questions. Take learning from the inside to the outside as much as you can. So the question for yourself is, what am I currently doing inside that I could do better outside on the land? Be open to that authentic inquiry should an opportunity arise. If they go from that rock to that squirrel, you're going to go with the squirrel, right? And that's, you can just start, we have to be willing to pivot and change on a dime. And that's where we're going to get our most excitement and our most real world learning. And combining subjects, everything you're responsible for is efficient and it is easier to connect with for kids. It makes sense to them. So as I say, the more you connect, the better the learning. It makes more sense for you and for your students. So don't go through this school year with old goals. We've been using this slide now since COVID, but this is 2023 now. Oh, how did it get to be that? Yeah. It's a year that can change us in new ways. So have different goals. And you can always consider connection, mental wellness, physical health, and maintaining those relationships with the land, with each other. And that's the beginning of sustainability. So get outside, everybody. And here's the long list of things that you can do. There's lots and lots of ideas. You can flip through these at your leisure and just showing you so that you know they're there. Lots and lots. And we've also thrown in a few resources, lots of stuff that you can take a look at. And of course, always r4r.ca, LSF's website, where there's over 1,700 searchable lesson plans, books, outdoor activities, and you can search by language, by province, by grade, by subject, by theme, or by SDG. You can search right down to the strand you teach. So check that out, and there's all kinds of other things here that you can check out. In terms of resources, it's endless. And some programs. So thanks a lot. And enjoy yourself with your kids and get your kids outside and you as well. Thanks, everybody.